Hey, Gary, how are things?
Things are great, but I crushed my mortgage payment with Owning without even leaving my couch. I got a refi at a great low rate, and Owning did it all in less than 3 weeks. It was easy, no muss, no fuss.
Be like Gary. Call Owning at 833-2-OWNING and crush your mortgage payment with today's 15-year fixed refi at 1.5% rate, 1.912% APR. That's right, 15-year fixed at 1.5% rate, 1.912% APR. Even if you've refinanced recently, call 833-2-OWNING and let us crush your monthly payment even more.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Subject to credit approval. Call 833-852-6464 for terms and conditions. Equal housing lender.
You can crush it, too, with a 15-year fixed, 1.5%, 1.912% APR refi.
That's 833-2-OWNING or go to owning.com.
What's at stake in the September 14th recall? It's a matter of life and death. With Delta surging, Governor Newsom is protecting California, requiring vaccination for healthcare workers and school employees. Governor Newsom is fighting every day to ensure our state comes back stronger than ever. But on September 14th, Republicans are trying to seize power by recalling Newsom and undoing all his work protecting our communities. The leading Republican candidate promoted dangerous anti-vaccine conspiracy theories during the pandemic. And he'd eliminate all vaccine mandates on day one, which could force schools to close and threaten our recovery. That's why voting no on the recall is so important. Stop the spread. Return your ballot or vote in person by September 14th. Protect California by voting no on the Republican recall. Ad paid for by Stop the Republican Recall of Governor Newsom. Committee major funding by Reed Hastings and SEIU Local 15.
Jeff Goodman is a basketball analyst at Stadium, on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. Had a nice piece up on Imani Bates earlier this week. He joins us now. Jeff, what up, man?
I'm looking forward. If Imani Bates comes to Memphis, I might just rent a wing on the Martin estate for this season.
We're full, unfortunately. We're full. We have a new addition to the family, and then my mother-in-law is living with us. So, I mean, we could put you. There is a spare room. There's no bed though, so if you're comfortable sleeping on the floor, we'll make it happen.
Listen, I can change diapers. I can, pick up the dog poop. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it.
I think Imani Bates is worth you at least considering moving to Memphis for the season. You've known him for a long time. You've known the family for a long time. Before we get into where he might go and visits and things like that, when you watch him play, do you see a bona fide, no questions asked, top 5 pick in the NBA draft maybe better?
I do. I think the biggest thing with him is just developing his body and some of his, habits still on the defensive end need to improve. The hard part is, and I kind of wrote this yesterday, when you're on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 15 years old, who's going to live up to that? Other than LeBron, nobody's ever lived up to that. Nobody will. So, we're comparing him to KD a couple years ago, and he did kind of look like KD at the same stage. At the 15-year-old Kevin Durant, Imani Bates didn't look that far off because I saw the 15-year-old Kevin Durant. Well, Kevin Durant grew. He's 7 feet. Imani Bates is 6'8.5". So Imani Bates isn't going to be 7 feet like Kevin Durant, number one. And KD he got so much better every year. And Imani Bates, I do think, has gotten better. Some people will say, well, he's regressed. I think that's a lot of BS. He hasn't regressed, but he went through a lot this last year, like a lot of kids did, right? Obviously the pandemic, you're not playing a lot. You're not playing in front of fans. He switched schools. He had a good friend of his murdered. A family member died. There were a lot of things. And again, it's just so unfair. I feel like the way we build these kids up sometimes have ripped them down. And talking to Imani Bates for a good period of time, as I did down in Augusta, it was just clear that sometimes people just don't get it. A guy yelling overrated, had to be my age or older, yelling overrated at this 17-year-old kid. I wanted to look over and be like, what the hell are you doing?
What would Imani Bates look like on this Memphis basketball team, Jeff, that's got Jalen Duren and a nice nucleus returning?
Well, what he could be, too, I don't think people understand, like, he can handle the ball some too. So he's not going to be your point guard, but he can be a secondary ball handler for sure. You know, that was the one thing that I saw out of his game down at the PTM that I really hadn't seen a couple of years ago. I saw a straight-out scorer when he was 15 years old. And this past summer, I saw a guy that is capable and saw things, not just a scorer. Like, I really compare him a little bit to Jason Tatum, you know, in terms of, again, yes, he's a scorer first and foremost. But Jason Tatum can make plays for other guys if you put guys around him, right? And I think that'll be the case with Emoni Bates. Listen, if you got, you know, I don't even know who their point guard is right now, but let's say for argument's sake, you know, you got 4 dudes, and they would have it if they have Emoni Bates, that can all score the ball. I would then feel comfortable putting Alo out there as my starting point guard with 4 dudes that can really, really score the ball. Because I think Alo's got everything else, like all the DNA, all the intangibles, the toughness, but you need 4 really good players around him.
I don't think you're going to have to worry too much about that, Jeff.
That's interesting.
I'll be honest. If that is a pipe dream for you, I think you should let it go. But I know Alo appreciates it. I know Alo appreciates your faith in him.
I just, again, listen, the best Memphis team is the team with Alo coming off the bench. We know that, right? That's the best Memphis team, a team that, honestly, if you have a high-level starting point guard, can you contend for a national title or a Final Four? Absolutely. I don't know who that point guard is right now.
Let me ask you this. Let's say that Memphis lands Emoni Bates, right? Which, you know, a lot of people think is likely. What does that mean for – because in the end, if we say you're not going to start Alo, which I don't believe they would, you're talking about you got Lester, you got Earl Timberlake, provided he's healthy. You've got Emoni Bates. You've got DeAndre Williams. You've got Jalen Duren.
Nolly.
Where does that leave a guy like Landers Nolly, though? Is he going to buy in to a bench role if it is presented to him? Does he have a choice?
Well, he didn't buy into his role really at Virginia Tech, right? I mean, he was playing out of position there, or so they thought. So, yeah, that's going to be the big question is, again, somebody's going to have to give. If you're winning at a high level, usually guys are quiet. It's the moment you start losing or not winning at the level that people expect you to win at that then you'll start to hear some chatter. But, you know, again, you got Penny, you got Larry Brown, you got a different dynamic maybe with this coaching staff, with Cody, that I think could probably handle some of the stuff that might go on behind the scenes and in the locker room with guys, you know, being frustrated with their playing time, their minutes, their roles.
If all things, Jeff, I'm just curious on your opinion of the two programs. If all things as they currently stand, if all things are equal in terms of health and everything else, like Timberlake's healthy for the Tigers and all of the Oregon's folks are healthy, who's got the better roster right now? In terms of if you're Emoni, you're looking at both rosters. Which one's more talented? Is it even? Is it one more so than the other by a lot?
It's so hard to tell these days, guys, just because of all the transfers and all the movement. And I mean, you probably say, listen, you probably go with Oregon just based on their success as a program over the last few years, right? Like Dana Altman just finds a way every year to be relevant. He lost a ton. You know, Chris Duarte is a lottery pick, LJ Figueroa. Like, they lost a lot, but they just find a way. So I would say, like, hey, listen, if you're looking at it and saying, all right, Oregon and Memphis, well, you've got one program that's consistently been there, right? Consistently been there every year. They're in the mix. And you got one program that just hasn't really done much. I mean, how long has it been, guys, since Memphis in the regular season has been nationally relevant?
The year with Joe and Michael Dixon and Jaron.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, so that's 13-14. So it's been, 8 years.
Right. Yeah, so, again, but kids don't look at it that way.
Exactly.
And they probably shouldn't.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
They should feel like they can come in and change it immediately, which they can if you're that talented.
Listen, the other part, and I don't know how much you guys have talked about this, but the other part, I kind of alluded to it a little bit in the story I wrote. So Emoni Bates plays with Bates Fundamentals. They don't do well. He had played with Team Final earlier in the summer and did very well. And a lot of people loved watching him then because, he was doing some of those other things I talked about, passing the ball, moving it, sharing it. Well, they get eliminated, and team finals on their way to eventually winning the championship down the Pete Sam. And it was awesome to see Amani Bates on the bench, literally down the end of the bench, first one up, cheering, congratulating dudes, yelling, screaming, and it wasn't prompted by anybody. Like, that was the part, honestly, and I told him this after the week. I said, that was the part that I think said more to me about you than anything else I saw the whole week that I was there. Because, again, most guys, they're not going to do that. They're not. They're about themselves. And that showed me he was not only, about that team, but, like, his relationship with Jalen Duren after that game. I went downstairs and talked to Monty again for about another 20 minutes and waited. And he and Jalen, you could just tell that friendship, that bond that they have right now. And I think that can help this Memphis team, too, if those guys play together.
We are, of course, talking to Jeff Goodman of Stadium. Has a new piece up at Stadium right now about Amani Bates and his decision that's coming up. Going to be in Memphis starting tomorrow, and then he'll get off to Oregon. How much do you think is left to be decided in the wake of these visits for Amani?
I think, listen, if you're filling out a crystal ball right now, John Martin, I know you love those crystal balls.
Love them, man. Love them.
Big fan. Big fan. I would, if I'm filling one out, I'm going with Memphis. Now, again, that doesn't mean if something happens on that visit that it doesn't kind of go the other way. We know how these visits can work, right? I mean, you can't have a miserable visit. But I think Memphis is the front runner going into the visits. How's that?
Yeah. I mean, do you think obviously Oregon
can change?
Yeah, I was going to say Oregon having the last word, so to speak, right? I mean, do you really think this is one of those deals where, okay, he likes Memphis, he goes to Memphis, it further cements him at Memphis, but he goes to Oregon and he hears or sees something that he didn't foresee and it changed? Like I don't know. I'm just trying to get your feel of it.
You mean like he comes in and like Phil Knight has like a table full of cash,
right,
waiting for him?
Which that's not good.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
No, imagine you go to Oregon right now, and I don't know how many of your listeners understand the dynamic at Oregon, but obviously Phil Knight being the founder of Nike, his son's name is on the court. Like, he is a huge Oregon guy. And obviously, Memphis is a Nike school, so I think he'd be okay. But if you're Phil Knight, you're getting older. I think he's 85 almost. Mm-hmm. You're saying to yourself, like, if I get this dude, we got a chance to maybe win a national title? All right, like, what do I have to do? Like $1 million to Phil Knight is like $5 to you and me.
Jeff, how visible would Elgin be? You get him here and all that kind of and you've talked about before, and he's been part of a good team. He's part of that team final team, and they won there, and you saw it there. And I guess in that case, Elgin is in control and everything. Hell, at one point I read in your story he's coming off the bench. Imani is, but if how much do you think, knowing Elgin and that family as well as you do you think that once he gets to Memphis and Penny's calling the shots and has the control that he's willing to be in the background? Or you think we hear from Elgin if 2 games in it's not going so well from Imani and Elgin's talking to the beat writer? What do you think happens there? How's Dad going to be when he loses a little bit of that control?
So I don't know the family super well.
Okay.
In full disclosure, I don't. But I've spent some time around Elgin over the last month and really, really like him. My perception of Elgin is not reality at all. I thought the family was super controlling. What they are is protective. They're not controlling. They're super protective of their son because of everything that obviously he's had to go through. Mm-hmm. And I talked to his mom as well, and she's the same way. They're straight shooters. Like, they're not full of crap at all. And I'll give you one example to show that thgoing to controlling. So, I was talking about when to put this story out and whatnot, and I was going to do it around some news. And hopefully he's going to put out his final list at that point. Mm-hmm. And I'm on the phone with the dad, and like literally I get off the phone with the dad, and he's still telling me at that point Baylor was in the mix and whoever else. I mean, you could tell the schools that were the priority schools at that point, but Baylor was still in the mix, and I forget the 5th school, but there was one more. And I hang up, and 10 minutes later, Joe Tipton breaks the news that it was down to just the G League. Overtime was out, and it was just G League, Memphis, Oregon, and Michigan State. And I called the dad back. I'm like, what's up with this? He's like, honestly, I had no idea. Like, Amani just did it. He just did it. He's like, people think that I control things, that I'm telling them what to do. And he's like, we don't do that. We want him to be a man now. Like, he's got to make this decision on his own. And his mom even said that, obviously they did base fundamentals for Amani. They've set things up for him for the most part for the last few years. But even she said, she's like, listen, he's got to do this. He's got to enter into manhood here. This is his decision. This is not our decision. This guy is not LeVar Ball, guys, at all. Like, the furthest thing from it, he wants his son to be safe, to be successful, all of that. But I really like both of his parents a ton because I think there's no BS with them.
Hey, Gary, how are things?
Things are great, but I crushed my mortgage payment with owning without even leaving my couch. I got a refi at a great low rate, and owning did it all in less than 3 weeks. It was easy, no muss, no fuss.
Be like Gary. Call Owning at 833-2-OWNING and crush your mortgage payment with today's 15-year fixed refi at 1.5% rate, 1.912% APR. That's right, 15-year fixed at 1.5% rate, 1.912% APR. Even if you've refinanced recently, call 833-2-OWNING and let us crush your monthly payment even more.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Subject to credit approval. Call 833-852-6464 for terms and conditions. Equal housing lender.
You can crush it, too, with a 15-year fixed, 1.5%, 1.912% APR refi.
That's 833-2-OWNING or go to owning.com.
What's at stake in the September 14th recall? It's a matter of life and death. With Delta surging, Governor Newsom is protecting California, requiring vaccination for healthcare workers and school employees. Governor Newsom is fighting every day to ensure our state comes back stronger than ever. But on September 14th, Republicans are trying to seize power by recalling Newsom and undoing all his work protecting our communities. The leading Republican candidate promoted dangerous anti-vaccine conspiracy theories during the pandemic. And he'd eliminate all vaccine mandates on day one, which could force schools to close and threaten our recovery. That's why voting no on the recall is so important. Stop the spread. Return your ballot or vote in person by September 14th. Protect California by voting no on the Republican recall. Ad paid for by Stop the Republican Recall of Governor Newsom. Committee major funding by Reed Hastings and SEIU Local 15.
For the health coverage you need, close to home, lean on Molina Healthcare. Molina has 40 years of experience and covers preventative services, pediatric care, maternity and newborn care, and more. For details, go to leanonmolina.com. Get the care you need. Lean on Molina.